What's up, guys? Another video for my YouTube channel today to talk about Brazil 1, Norway 2. This Brazilian team is just disrespectful to the pentacampeones. I don't even know who are the fullbacks. Brazil has a history of fullbacks. Maicon, Dani Alves, Cafu, Roberto Carlos, you can name it all day long. Nevertheless, just to talk about the forwards, right? Hendrik, that play that you just get into the field and you lose that opportunity. If Ronaldo Nazario is watching this game, if Rivaldo is watching this game, if Bebeto is watching this game, if Romario is watching this game, they will be blaming on you. I mean, the only soccer player that this team has is the guy that entered just 20 minutes before the game is going to finish, is Neymar. That's the only player this soccer team has. This is not the Brazil that we used to know. Where is the Brazil that we used to know? Where is the pentacampeon? This is not the pentacampeon. I can name it all line long. I can name Rivaldo, Raí, Dunga, Branco, needless to say Pelé, Garrincha, or the, in the 70s, needless to say those players. But really, like, a shame to those players that, of course, you're always thinking, like, is the pentacampeon, they will have a bunny on their hats, but it's not the case. And Brazilian defense, of course, this Norway team is just Haaland, and you can name Odegaard, and maybe you can name the Orslot from Atletico de Madrid. Hard to name all the other Norway players. But guys, you have to just mark up Haaland. Is the one that you have to mark up. I think Norway didn't really intended to play on the wings and just center Haaland. When they intended to do, they score one goal. That's the only goal that you can just say, okay, Norway intended just to go and just center for Haaland, and then he scored a goal. Then the second goal, Marquinhos and Magalhães just put it in front of him. Haaland just stopped the ball. He just made himself a pass and then just take the shot. How, like, he was in the living room, right? Like he was in the living room of his house. Of course, amazing strike just next to the pole. Of course, this is Haaland, but you Brazilian center backs, you have to put in front of him and not let him shoot. That's the only job you have. Why you didn't do that? That's something really weird for me. They have to be on top of the player, especially if it's Haaland. As I say, you can just put apart Neymar. I think it's the only player they have. But and you can also put Casemiro like apart. But Vinicius, I mean, come on. Vinicius, it's okay. He's fast. When he has the ball, he can go faster. But like with the ball in his feet, just trying to dribble, is not that kind of player. And when you bring the other Brazilian historic players in place, like Ronaldo Nazario, like Bebeto, like Rivaldo, like Ronaldinho Gaúcho, like Romario, needless to say, Pelé or Garrincha or other historic players, needless to say that, they're not even, Vinicius is not even just a piece of the food of those players that I name. It's okay. Vinicius plays in Real Madrid. He's super fast, whatever you want to say. But come on. This is not the kind of Brazilian player that just know how to dribble. They know how to invent. Brazilian players, they used to invent the dribbles. They are the ones that invent the dribbles, right? So maybe the Argentinians too, but the Brazilian players are the one that you just watch them and you say, oh, look, this guy, look what he made. He built his play. He'll dribble like no one else in the world did. And you can really see that on the Brazilian players, on the team, on the national team, right? So I don't know what happened with the Brazilian players. They play on the beaches and they do like these fancy things, but it's not happening. It's not happening. I'm waiting for that. I'm always waiting for Brazilian players to copy them. When I play my games with my friends, I used to watch the Brazilian players because they made things that no one can do, right? So, but with these teams, it's really a shame. It's really a shame. No one can say, okay, this Brazilian player, oh, he invented this play, right? So he made this dribble, like a fancy dribble that no one else can do. And he invented that play, and it's not happening. It's not happening with this Brazilian team. And really, this is a shame, because when you are looking for a Brazilian player, except for Neymar, let me just make a parenthesis here. Neymar is the only guy that you could see him. Of course, he might be getting old, he might be injured, but that's the only player that you could see him, and he can invent out of nowhere like a dribble. When you give him the ball in his feet, he can out of nowhere he can just dribble or do something that you are not expecting, and no one else could do that, or no one else had done that before. It's that kind of Brazilian player, and Brazil is not really bringing those players into the national team, because I don't know if these players are not in the Brazilian league. They're not coming out from the scouting, from the like the lower divisions in the big teams in São Paulo, like this year, or even Corinthians or Palmeiras. Maybe those lower divisions are not bringing those Brazilian players that used to be like the Brazilian players that, again, I don't want to sound repetitive, but those Brazilian players that used to invent the plays, the dribbles that you will get magnified, that you will open your eyes because you will see that Brazilian player just doing something different that no other player can do, or maybe like the Argentinians, or maybe like another the national team that could do that. But really disappointing for the Brazilian team. And they just getting out. They're going home very early again on the World Cup. I was expecting to see I don't know, maybe next game it could have be like England and Brazil. But now, England has to face Mexico. But now Norway is in the next round. So really disappointing game for Brazil. And then Bruno Guimaraes losing that PK. Of course, the Norwegian goalkeeper did a great save, and he had a great game. He saved a few times. He just went so fast when Endrick has that ball that he faced the goal. And again, Endrick, that chance that you have, the score was 0-0. Endrick, if Ronaldo Nazario is watching the game, he might be blaming on him, and shame of Henrik, right? So really the Brazilian historic forward and center attack, really, and the strikers that Brazilian has historically, really looking at Henrik in the field, or Vinicius in the field, or Cunha in the field, they will really feel shame on them, right? So they will really, they're not the level that Brazil used to have. And again, I think Neymar is the only player that you could see. I'm going to pay my ticket to see this guy. I'm not going to pay a ticket to see this Brazilian team, but if I have to pay a ticket, I'm going to pay the ticket to watch Neymar on the field, because he is the only one that can guarantee the Brazilian plays, the Brazilian game that they have in his blood, right? So that game that he can dribble, he can out of nowhere, he can do it, something that no one is expecting. And really, I feel bad and I feel shame, because the Brazilian hermanos, this team and this nation deserves much more than what this team just gave today to the Norway against Norway in the World Cup. So really, really, really a shame. I'm really sad about that, because I was expecting more from Brazil. This is soccer. I hope Brazil has to think about what they're doing with the academies, what they're doing with the scouting division, whether there's something there, whether there's something wrong there. But they really have to think what they're doing, because this is not what people is expecting from Brazil. Brazil is expecting much more from the players that are coming out from the academies, from the teams, and again from the scouting. Really, really a shame. And I don't know, maybe they have to rebuild the whole thing. Just find a Brazilian head coach, just to bring a Brazilian head coach that he can look into the players, he can bring more players, and just really bring to the game more joy, more dribble, more what Brazil used to be. That is not there anymore, unfortunately. Really unfortunate not for the Brazilian team, and for the Brazilian nation first, but for the whole world. I think the whole world has to really need those Brazilian players to be out there again, just cheering and just being there on any other World Cup. If you like this video, please like or subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.